You don't remember exactly when it started, but there's a silent script playing inside your head. A line you didn't write but somehow memorized. Tells you money is hard. That wealth is for them, not you. That no matter how much you try, it always slips just beyond your reach. You laugh off the frustration, call it bad luck, bad timing, bad market. But in the quiet, you know there's something deeper, something invisible, something that thinks for you before you even realize you're thinking. And that's where the truth begins. Your mind isn't free. It's conditioned. Napoleon Hill didn't call it that. He called it a blueprint, a subconscious pattern you inherited, absorbed, or adopted from people who themselves never questioned it. Parents who worked hard but never prospered. Teachers who warned you not to dream too big. A culture that taught you wealth and virtue don't belong together. And so, without knowing, you built your life on someone else's limits. But Hill had a theory that shocked his era, and still unnerves people today. He believed that wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by becoming a person whose mind is already wired to receive it. He called it a definiteness of purpose. But it's more than intention. It's identity. And identity is made, not found. So the real question is, how do you make yourself into the kind of person wealth trusts? Start here. Picture this. It's midnight. You're sitting at your kitchen table. Bills on the left, dreams on the right. You tell yourself you'll change. Tomorrow, next month, once the pressure lifts. But Hill would say, you are where you are because of your dominating thoughts. That means wealth isn't waiting for external change. It's waiting for internal command. There's a reason you still hesitate when opportunity knocks. Why you lower your price, shrink your value, second-guess your ideas. It's not logic, it's imprint. Your subconscious is filled with silent rules about how much abundance you're allowed to receive before guilt kicks in. Before fear whispers that it will all be taken away. So Hill offers you a challenge. Not a wish, not a prayer, a method. And the first principle is brutal in its simplicity. Decide. Decide what you want. Not vaguely. Not more money or freedom or success. Your subconscious doesn't move for poetry. It needs precision. Hill demanded that you name it with numbers, timelines, and vivid sensory texture. Your goal must feel like déjà vu. If I asked you right now, how much wealth is enough? Could you answer without flinching? Could you close your eyes and see the room you'll wake up in once you have it? Could you hear the voice of the person you've become, telling you what to do next? Because here's the truth. Your subconscious is always listening, and it follows repetition, not truth. So if every day you tell yourself, I'll never figure it out, guess what gets wired in? Hill's second principle is this: auto-suggestion. Sounds technical, but you've done it your whole life. Every time you said, I'm not a numbers person, or money stresses me out, or people like me don't get rich, you were programming your system. They'll just made you aware of it. So now you flip the switch. Each morning, before the world starts shouting at you, you say it aloud. Not what you fear, what you want, and you say it like it's already real. You wake up and declare, I am attracting $500,000 by December 1st. It flows through my skills, through service, through aligned action. I feel it. I believe it. I expect it. Not because you're delusional, but because your subconscious is mechanical. It doesn't care what's real. It cares what's repeated. You won't believe it at first. Your nervous system will rebel. It'll laugh, roll its eyes, throw distractions at you, because you're threatening the identity that kept you safe. But Hill said, faith is the only known antidote for failure. Not blind faith, but conditioned beliefs. That's why you say it every day. Not until it works, but until it feels normal. That's the threshold. You're not reprogramming thoughts. You're rebuilding the operating system that interprets the world. And here's where it gets deeper. Hill wasn't selling affirmation. He was engineering emotionally charged repetition. It's not enough to say the new beliefs. You have to feel it. So when you declare your wealth goal, you close your eyes. And you step into that version of yourself. What do they wear? How do they walk into rooms? What choices do they no longer make? You imagine it so vividly that your body reacts as if it's already true. And that is when your brain starts wiring new patterns, because it learns from emotion, not information. Still with me? Good. Because here's the moment most people quit. When the outer world doesn't change fast enough. When the bills are still there. The silence is still there. The self-doubt is still there. And that's when you remember Hill's third law, persistence. He said the majority of people fail not because they're incapable, but because they gave up at the exact moment momentum was gathering beneath the surface. You wouldn't dig 3 feet and abandon the mine. But we do that with dreams all the time. So persistence isn't brute force. It's ritual. You build a schedule of thought. Every morning, declaration. Every night, visualization. Every challenge, recalibration. Every fear, transmutation. You don't wait to feel inspired. You train inspiration. You sit with doubt and say, I see you, but we're still moving. You build a mind that doesn't flinch. A mind that treats wealth not as a miracle, but as a reflection. Because the truth is, wealth is already circulating in the world right now. The question isn't if it's there. The question is, are you a match for it? And the match isn't hustle. It's identity. You start to feel the tension between the old you and the one you're becoming. It shows up in the smallest moments. You hesitate before speaking your dream aloud at dinner, because the people at that table still think realistic is a virtue. You stare at your calendar and realize it's filled with obligations that serve everyone's goals but your own. And there's this subtle grief that creeps in, not just for the time you've lost, but for the version of you that kept shrinking to survive. Hill would tell you that this discomfort is confirmation. It means the process has started. When you begin to rewire your identity, your environment will resist, because it was built to maintain who you used to be. And that's the next shift. Environment shapes expectation. You can't become someone new while living inside the architecture of your old limitations. You wake up in a room that reflects your past. The clutter, the unpaid bills on the fridge, the books you said you'd read. You check your phone and it's the same accounts, the same voices, the same posts subtly convincing you to settle. But here's Hill's rarely quoted truth. Deliberately seek the company of people who influence you to think and act on building the life you desire. That's not motivational fluff. That's neurology. Your subconscious is impressionable. If you're surrounded by people who complain, who coast, who fear money, you absorb it. Even if you don't agree, your body does. It listens. It watches. It adapts. So ask yourselves, who would you be if no one around you knew your name? If you were free from their expectations, their doubts, their limits, what version of you would emerge? This is where courage is no longer optional. If you want to rewire your mind for wealth, you must also be willing to let go of the environments that keep reinforcing scarcity. That might mean distancing yourself from the friend who laughs at your ideas. It might mean spending your evenings not watching Netflix, but watching your thoughts. It might mean creating a corner of your home that looks like the future, not the past. You're not waiting for motivation. You're building momentum, and you do it through emotion. Hill was obsessed with emotion, not as something you suppress, but something you leverage. He believed every thought becomes powerful only when it is infused with feeling. Think about it. Why do we remember heartbreak more vividly than lectures? Because the body remembers what the brain wants to forget. So when you speak your wealth declaration, you must feel it in your chest. Not just want it, but grieve for the times you didn't believe it was possible. Get angry for the years you played small. Let joy rush in when you imagine what's now within reach. Don't say, I want to be rich. Say, I am done being invisible. That's when your voice changes. That's when your body listens. That's when your future self starts leaning in. But emotion without direction becomes chaos. That's why Hill insisted on organized planning. Not hustle. Not grinding. Strategic, intelligent movement. So here's your next step. You reverse engineered your goal. Let's say you declared $250,000 in 12 months through my creative work. Ask yourselves, what skill must I master to deserve that? What network must I build to support that? What version of me must lead that? Then break it down 12 months, 52 weeks. What gets done this week? Not in fantasy, in execution. Most people get stuck here. They treat desire like a wish list. But Hill said desire must become a plan, and that plan must become an obsession. Not anxiety, not pressure, obsession. That's the state where doubt gets quiet, and only the next move matters. But the most important move you'll ever make isn't external. It's this: deciding you are worthy now. Not when the goal arrives, not when the bank account fills, but now while you're still becoming. Because if you don't feel worthy now, you'll sabotage later. You'll undercharge, overdeliver, delay launching, second-guess the pitch, shrink when you should expand. Because your subconscious will still believe wealth is foreign. So Hill's method is relentless. It forces you to become the result you're seeking before it ever arrives. You don't wait to be a millionaire to think like one. You don't wait to have a brand to speak with conviction. You don't wait for permission to act powerful. You step into that version today. You act in alignment before it makes sense. And when resistance comes, and it will, you don't panic. You remember Hill's law of decision. Wealth rewards the clear. That means no more maybe someday. That means no more polling 10 people before you act. That means no more apologizing for wanting more. You're not being greedy. You're being responsible with your potential. And that scares people who abandon theirs. So when they doubt you, smile. When they mock your certainty, say thank you. When they ask why you're so obsessed, tell them, because I am no longer available for the version of me that's settled. You're not here to impress. You're here to embody. And in that embodiment, you do something radical. You become magnetic. People feel it. They don't know why. They just lean in. They say yes. They follow your work. They recommend your name. They open doors without being asked. Because confidence isn't loud. It's aligned. And alignment is rare, which is why it's valuable. So now you've done what most never do. You've stopped reacting to life and started reprogramming it. Your days don't begin with chaos. They begin with command. Your vision doesn't live in a notebook. It lives in your body. And your wealth, it doesn't feel like luck. It feels inevitable. Because you built the internal structure for it long before anyone else believed it was coming. There's a moment few people talk about. It comes after the breakthrough, after the plan, after the first visible signs of success start to appear. You land the client. You hit the number. You open your inbox and see the kind of opportunity that once lived only in your imagination. And then, something strange happens. You don't feel triumphant. You feel anxious. You question whether you deserve it. You wonder when it will all slip away. You get the raise and immediately think, what if I mess this up? You start receiving praise, and something inside recoils. Not out of humility, but fear. This is the hidden resistance Hill warned about. Not fear of failure, but fear of success. Because success, real success, demands you abandon the version of you that was addicted to struggle. And whether you realize it or not, that identity served you. It gave you something to fight against. Something to prove. A story that made you feel significant. Look how hard I work. Look how much I sacrifice. But now peace arrives. Abundance enters. Doors open without a war. And your nervous system panics. Because peace feels unfamiliar. And what is unfamiliar is often rejected, even if it's everything you prayed for. So you subconsciously create friction. You delay. You get careless. You chase new drama to restore the old adrenaline loop. Not because you want chaos, but because chaos feels like home. And here's where Hill's brilliance deepens. His method wasn't about external tactics. It was about identity reinforcement. He knew that wealth not only had to be earned, it had to be sustained through a new self-image. He wrote, "You will never have riches in great quantities unless you can work yourself into a white heat of desire for money, and actually believe you will possess it." That word, believe, isn't passive. It's a muscle. And belief must be trained, especially when you start winning. Because without reinforcement, your mind will try to return to normal. It will anchor you back to mediocrity, not out of malice but memory, because that's the map it memorized. So how do you stabilize at your new level? You don't celebrate the outcome. You celebrate the identity that created it. You journal not, "I made $10,000 this month," but I showed up like a leader even when I was afraid. You affirm, not I'm successful, but I choose discipline, clarity, and calm daily. You notice the discomfort and say, ah, this is what expansion feels like. And you breathe through it, not as a signal to stop, but as a cue to keep going. This is where emotional fluency becomes wealth fluency. Because Hill didn't just give you a roadmap to financial gain, he gave you a blueprint for psychological stability. You learn to self-soothe without sabotage. You stop interpreting discomfort as danger. You stop giving fear the microphone. And you start seeing success not as a finish line, but as a reflection of alignment. Here's what most people get wrong. They think the mind is like a light switch. Once flipped, it stays on. But the mind is more like a garden. Stop tending it and weeds return. Old patterns regrow. Familiar scarcity creeps in under the cover of busyness. So Hill's method doesn't end when the money arrives. It evolves. You install rituals. Morning visioning, not to manifest, but to remind. Evening gratitude, not to feel good, but to train recognition of abundance. You surround yourself with people who mirror your future, not your past. You ask new questions, not how do I make more, but how do I multiply what already works? Not am I good enough yet? But what if this is only the beginning? Not how long will this last? But how deep can I root into this identity? Because when the foundation is internal, the external becomes effortless. You'll find yourself handling money differently. You'll hold it with calm, not desperation. You'll invest in your growth instead of gambling for a fix. You'll walk into negotiations not hoping for a yes, but deciding which yes aligns. And perhaps most importantly, you'll stop talking yourself out of good things. When someone praises your work, you'll say, thank you, without deflection. When opportunity knocks, you won't ask, why me? You'll ask, what now? That is the posture of someone who's rewired for wealth. And that is rare. It's rare because most people never make it this far. They want the outcome, not the ownership. They want the lifestyle, not the inner life. They want the money, but still see themselves through the eyes of their past. But you've walked through the fire. You've sat with your scarcity. You've rewritten your thoughts line by line. You've let go of people, places, and habits that no longer match your future. And now you arrive not at a destination but at a frequency. Wealth is no longer an event. It is a state of being. You no longer hustle for validation. You create from overflow. You no longer hoard out of fear. You invest from beliefs. You no longer chase money. You magnetize it because you are the kind of person who moves with value, who sees opportunity, who builds with clarity, who leads with vision. That is the essence of Hill's method. Not just to have money, but to become someone money trusts. And when that happens, everything changes. You look at your calendar and it reflects your values. You walk into a room and people lean forward. Not because you're loud, but because you're clear. You fall asleep not with anxiety, but with alignment. Because finally, you're not trying to become wealthy. You are. Now ask yourself one final question. If you never made another excuse, if you stopped waiting for the right moment, if you declared today that you are the kind of person who builds empires from within, what would change in the next 30 days? Whatever answer came to your mind just now, that's where you start. Comment below. My mind is my empire. And let's make wealth not a fantasy, but your new normal.